Welcome to the Texas High School Football Coaches Show on Lone Star Gridiron. I'm Chris Daly, and it's my belief that the men that make up the fraternity of Texas high school football coaches are much more than a bunch of thick-necked guys with whistles. They do so much more than teach technique and the X's and O's of football. They take young boys and change them into young men of character. They get kids to believe in themselves, to trust others, and to put others ahead of themselves. Texas high school football coaches are unique in how they impact the lives of these athletes as well as the generations those kids touch. In this show, I sit down with a different Texas high school football coach each time and learn about them. Not their record, not their on-field accomplishments, but who they are and what they believe and what it means to be part of the greatest sport in the greatest state. Welcome back, everybody, to the Lone Star Gridiron Texas High School Football Coaches Show, Season 4, Episode 7. My guest this week is Coach Lee Fedora, who led Navasota to state championships in 2012 and 2013. But since 2017, he has been the head coach and athletic director at A&M Consolidated. We'll talk with him right after this. Hey, I want to give a big thank you to this season's title sponsor, Mecca Sportswear, where they are all about celebrating achievement. They're honored that so many high schools, colleges, and universities have chosen Mecca's products to represent their institutions. Mecca supplies you with the very best in custom letter jackets, chenille letters, patches, blankets, banners, pins, certificates, and much more to motivate and celebrate achievement in athletics, academics, or the arts. They create high-quality custom awards that will fit your budget. To see why so many great schools around Texas choose Mecca Sportswear, call Sherry Armstrong or Billy Armstrong at 210-651-6592. Mecca Sportswear, the premier suppliers of letter jackets and awards for over 40 years.
Rocket Man, the story of D.W. Rutledge and the Judson High School football dynasty, is a must-read. It provides complete coverage of every game coached by Rutledge, but more importantly, tells the stories of the impact he has had on the tens of thousands of students, parents, coaches, administrators, and fans. Dr. Charles Breithaupt and Chris Daly, both well-known in the Texas high school football community, joined forces to tell this much-needed and inspiring tale. Get your copy now at rocketmanbook.com.
All right, everybody join me in welcoming Coach Lee Fedora from A&M Consolidated to the show. Coach, how are you doing this morning?
Doing great.
Awesome. So, as you know, as much as I would love to talk about the Tigers and see what's up for this season, we're going to focus on you. So, let's jump all the way back to the first time you realized, hey, this football thing is a cool thing.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I was in ninth grade in high school here at A&M Consolidated, I knew that my goal was I wanted to be a head football coach. And, you know, of course, I have an older brother that was in coaching and doing all that. But I just loved being in athletics and being a part of it, and I always had a goal. I wanted to go play ball at college, and I was fortunate enough to get to go to Texas A&M, and I played baseball, and I played a year of football until I got injured there, and then ended up playing 4 years of baseball there. Got to play in a 93 College World Series game and graduated early, and I had an opportunity to get into coaching back at my alma mater here at A&M Consolidated, and Coach Rogers hired me. And one thing was I know when he said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, Coach, I can't see that far along. In 3 years, I want to be a head coach. And I was fortunate enough 3 years later to become a head coach.
That's excellent. And you hear that story, not that complete story a lot, but you hear the story a lot that coaches will work their way through the systems at different schools and end up back where they played. And So you kind of come full circle. But if you could, from the time you graduated college till now, give us a stop-by-stop everywhere you've coached.
Well, I was an assistant coach here at A&M Consolidated for 3 years, and then I was fortunate enough to get my first head coaching job at Rogers. And I was there for 5 years and ended up with a record of 48-15. Got beat in the semifinals in 2002, and then I had a goal to, go to another program and, try to build from there. And I went to Waco Robinson, and I was there for 2 years. My first year, one of my goals was never have a losing season. My first year, we went 1-9, but I told myself, you got to keep your head up, keep working, and we ended up winning the district championship the next year and went 9-1-1. So my record there was 10-10-1. And then I got hired at Navasota, and I was there for 11 years. Ended up getting 109 wins, 30 losses, and I won 2 state championships there with 2 16-0 records there. And after that, I was able to take a job here at A&M Consolidated. In my first 2 years here, we've won 19 games. And, got an overall record of 186 wins and 60 losses. And, a lot of people ask me, man, you got 186 wins. That's awesome. And the main thing I remember are those 60 losses, trying to find a way that we should have got those things better.
Nice. So that's a pretty bold, I guess, goal to start off, to never have a losing season. But, you've come pretty darn close to that.
Yeah, well, one thing I learned from my mentor, Coach Ross Rogers, when we hired, he said you ought to have some goals in your mind. And, a couple of your goals, you got to try to win a state championship. And I was fortunate enough to win 2 of those. And he said, as a high school coach, it's always good to get to 200 wins. And I told him, I said, well, I'd love to do that in 20 years. He said, well, that's tough to do. That's 10 wins a season and all those. But I'm at 186 wins after my 20th year and, 14 wins away from that. But I'll be honest with you, when it comes down to it, one thing I learned, not about your wins and losses, that mean you're a successful coach. What makes you a successful coach is if you can change one man's life, getting them in the right path in the real world. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. And that's a great feeling about, being in the coaching profession.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing I've seen over and over again is when a coach starts out, it's all about those W's, and it's all about technique and learning the best schemes. And somewhere along the line, it switches to becoming about those kids. When was that for you?
Well, I'll tell you, it was, I was doing a lot of speaking at clinics and stuff, and I had to sit down one time at one of our regional meetings with Mac Brown, and me and Mac were talking, and Coach Brown said, Lee, what do you think it takes to be a successful coach? And I said, well, I'm sure like everybody says, it's your wins and losses. And he said, well, Lee, I'm going to be honest with you. That's what everybody in communities are going to think. But to be a successful coach, it's about changing one man's life and getting them ready for the real world. And when I had that conversation with him, that really stuck with me, saying that's what I got to do is just make impact on these kids and get them ready for the real world. And that was a great sit-down meeting that I had with Coach Brown.
Amen. You mentioned Mac Brown. Talk about some of the influential coaches you've had in your career and what you picked up from them.
Well, it all starts with my high school coach, Coach Rogers. Growing up watching him coach us and the way he was after us, what I love about Coach Rogers, he was old school. He wasn't going to be the guy that pat you on the back and give you ribbons for participation. He was going to be hard on us, and that's the way I've always been in my coaching. I tell guys all the time, it ain't about being soft on you. When you think you're at your top of your ladder, I'm going to find a way to push you up that next step. And then, when I went to college and I was playing baseball, Mark Johnson was my coach, and he was a phenomenal coach, made a big impact on me. And, from there, it's been talking to a lot of different coaches. That's one thing I like about clinics and coaching school is just keeping great relationship with all these coaches. And when you got a lot of these head coaches in college's cell phone numbers, you call them and get to talk to them and go through things. That's a big help. But, the other guy that's been a mentor in my life, of course, is my father, but he's not a coach. But then my oldest brother, Larry, who's been in coaching. We talk all the time about coaching. We've got a great relationship being brothers.
Definitely. It takes the right setting in terms of community to win, too. If you could, kind of explain what it takes from the community.
I think a part of that, the thing to have success, you got to have some great assistant coaches around you. And I've been very fortunate to have great coaches hired and be a part of my staff. And a lot of my coaches have gone on to be head coaches and have success. And the other thing is you got to, have a community that's supportive. And I've been very fortunate at all the schools I've stopped at, that it's about, these kids and the community supporting you 100%, not only in football, but in all your sports. And, the other part is that these kids know that it's not just about your playing arena. You got to take care of it in academics, because I tell guys all the time, if you're a competitor, you don't only compete on the field or in the weight room, you're going to compete in the classroom and get great grades and move on, because, like I tell them, eventually your athletic future is done at some age. Even if you go in the NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball, you got to be ready for the real world and have a job, and that's what we always try to do. And I've been very fortunate to have great community involvement to where they come and support our kids in all aspects.
So also with winning, winning begets winning, but can that be a double-edged sword where the community now shifts and focuses just on the winning?
Well, a lot of times, and I've talked to a lot of coaches that have won big championships and not only state championships but national championships. And when you've been doing that, of course, sometimes everybody just expects, well, we ought to win it every year. Well, yeah. Every year is a new year. You just got to be focused and get ready. But that's where, I talk to kids all the time from the 7th grade on up. You got to get ready for your future and be going, because, one thing is we have what at all the schools I've been at, we call it a championship wall, to where I put the team picture up on the wall. But the only way I put it is if they're true champion, either a district champion or a by-district champion, then they get their picture on the wall. But if they don't win a championship, we don't put the picture up.
Got it. So you've seen a lot of kids over the years. Have you seen a change? There's a lot of talk about millennials, and they're all different. And have you seen a change in kids?
Well, the one thing is I think sometimes you get around the way society's moving, they're making some things softer and this and that. But the good thing is the kids that come under me, they know we're not going to be soft. We're going to push them and make them tough, because, like I tell them always, somewhere down the road in your life, you're going to get something that slaps you in the face. Adversity is going to strike. And our goal is going to teach you to keep your head up, keep fighting, fight through it, because, I always tell them, God deals you cards, you play the hand you're dealt. You don't let that affect you. You just keep fighting to make yourself a better person.
Definitely. And what about you have somebody from another state come up to you and say, Coach, what is the deal? Why is Texas so football crazy? How do you answer that?
Well, I just say that's always been that way. It's these kids have always been bought into sports. And, the one thing I tell them is, especially with athletics, it doesn't matter what it takes to help kids get their degrees. If it's athletics, if it's band, if it's drill team, whatever it takes, to get them to get that degree done to be ready for the real world. But I'll always say, in the state of Texas, football has been a big thing. But one thing I push my kids is not just about football. While you're in high school, you only got 4 years. You need to play all your sports, be around your brothers all the time, and compete and keep working hard. Because when you come back to your 10 and 20-year reunions, some of the greatest memories are, you remember on the football field when Coach did this, or you remember when we did that in that game, and those are the memories you have.
Definitely. Well, and if you could speak about the brotherhood that is football coaches in Texas. You mentioned camps and or conventions. Just kind of explain that a little.
Well, I tell you, the Texas High School Coaches Association is just a great association because, when we have coaching school and when we go to different clinics and stuff, it's just a group that it's a great time to get together because you get to see some of your friends, some guys you coach with, some guys you hadn't coached with, but you've always been competing against each other. And so it's such a great relationship. And I'll say the Texas High School Coaches Association is one of the greatest associations. And I'm very blessed to be a part of it for all this time because, they care about kids, they care about coaches, and it's been an outstanding deal to have all these guys around each other because it's all a coaching tree.
Definitely. So if you're at coaching school and some young guy that just got out of college walks in and asks you, hey, what should I know? How do you answer that?
I sit down with anybody that ever wants to talk, and I tell them the route that I went through it. And, back in the day, a lot of kids, when they say they want to get in coaching, hey, I'm going to get a PE major, and I tell them now, don't do that because you're not going to be able to teach PE. You got to get a good, degree to where it's composite, social studies, math, science, whatever. But, the way I try to lead them is I tell them the same way that I went through. You got to go through and you got to learn each and every day, because I don't care how many championships you win. When you think you know it all, that's probably the time to get out, because you got to keep learning something. I try to do that each and every year. I tell all my coaches, when we go to clinics, when we go to coaching school, try to come away with one thing that's going to make you better and make our program better.
Nice. And talk about the, returning back to your alma mater, how the community has welcomed you and, what you see there in the future.
Well, I've got great support from our community. This has always been a great community, but what I tell everybody, it doesn't matter what school I go to, even if it's my alma mater, I treat it as a new school and trying to implement my plan and toughen these kids and get them ready for the real world. But our community has been outstanding. They've been supportive, and you can see it in the stands. You can see it at every sporting event, how our fans go and support everybody, and they like the culture that we're putting in these kids to push them, and it's a great time.
Definitely. And finally, Coach, you mentioned goals earlier. What goals do you have looking forward?
Well, I've always had three goals, when I got into coaching. My first goal was, I want to win a state championship. I've been fortunate to get that. My other goal is I'd love to get to 200 wins. My third goal is something that I learned from other coaches that, the Texas High School Coaches Association, like we already talked about, is a great deal. I would love one day to be able to get in the Hall of Honor, Hall of Fame as a coach in that, because that's a great deal. But, when it comes down to it, my only goal is to get these kids and help them to get ready, prepared for the real world, to make them successful. And I tell you, the neatest thing is when I get done with games and I come in, either winning championships or winning games or even losing a game, and I get texts from some of my old players that played for me back in Rogers saying, Coach, I'm so proud of you. You've changed my life. You made me where I'm at today. Or when I get phone calls from some of my ex-players saying, Coach, I'm getting married. I'd love for you to come to my wedding, or this and that. Those are the neat things, because then you made those impact on those young men.
Amen. That is what it's all about. Coach Lee Fedora, I want to thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day and sharing some of your insights.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Rocket Man, the story of D.W. Rutledge and the Judson High School football dynasty, is a must-read. It provides complete coverage of every game coached by Rutledge, but more importantly, tells the stories of the impact he has had on the tens of thousands of students, parents, coaches, administrators, and fans. Dr. Charles Breithaupt and Chris Daly, both well known in the Texas high school football community, joined forces to tell this much-needed and inspiring tale. Get your copy now at rocketmanbook.com.
This show is brought to you by the book, All I Need to Know I Learned from My Texas High School Football Coach, a handbook of wisdom for parents, young people, and yes, even coaches. Head over to www.learnedfromcoach.com and order your copy to support sharing the stories of these great coaches and leaders. That's learnedfromcoach.com.
Thank you again to Coach Lee Fedora, and a big thank you to the sponsors of the LSG Texas High School Football Coaches Show. Tune in each Monday during the off season to hear more from these inspirational men.